everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. For today's recipe, we're making homemade mole sauce. Not the one from the bottle, today we're making it from scratch. There's many different ways on how to prepare this sauce, and today I'm going to share my recipe with you. To get started with this recipe, we're going to start by boiling the chicken first. You want to get this going first because we will be using the chicken broth for the recipe later on. I'm using a combination of thighs and legs. You can also use chicken breast or a combination of all three. I removed the skin from the chicken thigh so the broth doesn't come out greasy. We're also going to add half an onion, about 4 garlic cloves, 1 stick of cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of salt. Boil on medium-high heat for about 25 to 30 minutes. Once it reaches a boiling point, you're going to see a lot of this white stuff float to the top of the pot. You can simply skim it off with a spoon or you can leave it in there. I like to skim it off so we can have a nice clear broth to work with. One of the ingredients we're going to need for the mole recipe is nuts. I'm going to use half a cup of almonds. These have the skin on, so I'm going to soak them in hot water for about 10 to 15 minutes. This is going to help to loosen up the skin and it's going to make it a lot easier to peel the skin off. The peppers that I'm going to be using are 6 Chile Anchos, 3 Chile Mulatos, 4 Chile Guajillo, and about 6 to 8 Chiles De Arbol. The Chiles De Arbol is what's going to give our mole a little bit of spice, but if you prefer yours not spicy, you can leave the Chiles De Arbol out completely. I also removed the seeds and the vines from the Chiles de Ancho, Mulato, and the Guajillo. I left the seeds in the Chiles de Arbol to give it that extra heat. The almonds have been soaking for a little bit over 10 minutes. Now we're going to remove the skin from each piece. I'm going to use a combination of different nuts. I'm also going to use walnuts, peanuts, and sesame seeds. If you decide to use walnuts, you will also have to soak them in hot water to remove the skin. Other ingredients we're going to need for the mole is 2 sticks of cinnamon broken down, 1 tablespoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of anise seeds, 6 to 8 whole cloves, 1 disc of chocolate abuelita or a chocolate of your choice, half a package of galletas Maria, 1/3 of a cup of sesame seeds, half a cup of walnuts. The walnuts were also soaked in hot water to remove the skin. You can also add any combination of nuts that you prefer, or take out or add any of the nuts that I'm using. Half a cup of almonds. These are the same almonds that we peeled earlier. Half a cup of raw peanuts. 7 ounces of piloncillo, sugar or brown sugar. 5 to 6 roughly chopped garlic cloves. 1 large roughly chopped onion. And 1 large ripe plantain. Many of you may also know these as plátano macho. Trim off both ends of the plantain. Remove the skin and dice it into small strips like these. Before we begin to roast the peppers, we're going to remove 2 cups of the chicken broth from the pot. In a large pan large enough to accommodate all the peppers, heat up a tablespoon of vegetable oil. Add in the peppers except for the Chiles de Arbol. We're going to add those in last. Lightly toast them over medium heat for about 3 to 4 minutes with frequent movement, or until they're lightly fragrant and lightly pliable. After about 3 to 4 minutes, the peppers are nice and fragrant and lightly pliable. If you're using Chiles de Arbol, now is a good time to add those in. Roast the peppers with the Chiles de Arbol for an additional 1 more minute, then add in the 2 cups of the chicken broth. Move the peppers around to ensure they're completely submerged in the chicken broth and cover them while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. In a separate pan, melt 2 tablespoons of butter. Add in the slices of plantain and fry them over medium heat for about 5 to 7 minutes or until they have a nice golden color on all sides. Heat up a separate pan over low to medium heat and add in the peanuts, the almonds, and the walnuts. Lightly toast them for about 2 minutes with frequent movement. Once they're lightly toasted, add in the sesame seeds and continue toasting them for an additional 20 seconds with frequent movement. Then quickly remove them from the skillet to avoid the sesame seeds from getting burned. Clean off the residue from the pan and heat up a tablespoon of vegetable oil. Add in the onion and the garlic and saute for about 2 to 3 minutes or until the onion and the garlic are nice and fragrant and translucent. Remove the onion and the garlic from the pan. At this point we have all the ingredients ready, so now we can begin to prepare the mole. To prepare the sauce, we're going to start by adding the ingredients that take a little bit longer to break down. We're going to start by adding in the peppers, including the chicken broth that we used to soak the peppers in. We're also going to add in the cinnamon, the chocolate abuelita, and the piloncillo. Cover and blend on high for a good 1 to 2 minutes or until everything is well broken down and you have a nice smooth sauce. During the process, if it gets too thick, you can add a little bit more of the chicken broth to help blend the ingredients. We ended up blending the first batch of ingredients for about 3 minutes. Keep in mind that the amount of time that you blend could vary depending on the type of blender that you're using. Now we're going to add the remainder of the ingredients, beginning with the spices, the onion and the garlic, the fried plantains, the nuts, the galletas Maria, and 2 additional cups of the chicken broth. Cover and place it back on the blender for about 2 to 3 minutes or until the sauce is nice and smooth. During the blending process, if the sauce gets too thick, you can add more chicken broth as needed. The longer you blend, the smoother sauce you will have. The amount of time you blend can vary depending on the type of blender that you're using. The mole should have a nice thick consistency, just like this. Transfer the mole to a 6 to 8 quart stock pot. Add 4 cups of the chicken broth to the blender and place it back on the blender and blend for a good minute. This is going to loosen up the leftover mole that's stuck to the side of the blender and the blades. Add it to the stock pot with the rest of the mole and mix it in. Once you mix in the chicken broth from the blender, if it's still a little bit too thick, you can continue to add chicken broth as needed or until it reaches your desired consistency. At this point, you can also taste it to see if it needs additional salt or sweetener. I did end up using about a teaspoon of salt. The level of sweetness was just perfect. It has that sweet, spicy flavor to it, which is just the way we like it. The chicken that we prepared earlier, we're going to pour the sauce directly over the chicken. If you prefer to add the chicken with the mole, now is a good time to do so. Simmer with the mole for about 15 to 20 minutes, but I like to keep the chicken and the mole separate because we use the leftover mole the next day to prepare enmoladas. During the simmering process, make sure to give it frequent movement so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. A great indication to let you know the mole is ready is when it turns into a darker shade like this. And the mole fragrance is unbelievable. And now for my favorite part, the taste test. This recipe goes great with a side of red rice. You can find the link for the rice recipe in the description of this video. Pour the mole sauce over your chicken. You can add as little or as much as you want. Garnish with a little bit of sesame seeds and enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up. Share with your friends and family so they don't miss out on future recipes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on our next video with a different recipe.